Bobby, you said something that completely changed the way I even think about business. You believe that most real estate agents are building income, but not building wealth.
Well,
what do you mean by
that? I think if you're in real estate, you should be a real estate entrepreneur and a de facto investor, right? You're building a business, and most people build businesses to free themselves. The problem is they get stuck working in the business instead of on the business. And so you coming in as a real estate entrepreneur, not just an agent, you have the opportunity to be involved with one of the best investment vehicles there is, which is real estate and other investments as well. But as I've spoken before, it's really about that mindset. If I truly want to reach my goals, which by the way, I believe everybody has the same exact goal. Everybody wants to live life on their own terms. When you boil down what you really want, that's the essence of it. And the only way we know how to do that is through financial freedom. So whether you're in real estate or not in real estate, investing needs to be at the center of what you're thinking about. Listen, I always say the only cure for work is passive income. And so you have to figure out ways to get that passive income by either getting assets or building an organization like we do with EXP or whatever the case may be. At some point, your money has to work for you instead of you working for money.
Welcome to the Leverage Lounge, where we help entrepreneurs build businesses that create freedom instead of burnout. Now, today's guest is my buddy, Coach Bobby Franchise, Bobby Davidowitz, CEO of the Alliance Group at eXp Realty. He's an investor, somebody who's an entrepreneur, but more importantly, he's somebody who's passionate about business owners and helping them think beyond the next commission check.
All right.
All right. So let's dive in. Now, listen, success doesn't always look like success. I know that before all of the success that people see of you today, you had some trials and tribulations yourself. So who was Bobby Davidowitz back then?
Lost. That's who he was. I always told this story about how up until I graduated from college, I thought I had a plan, but I really didn't. I was just kind of following what the world told me I was supposed to do. I was supposed to get good grades, and I was playing sports and do good at sports. And then from high school, you go to college and then you get good grades again. It was easy because school was a strong thing for me. And so people would be like, what are you doing? I'll go to University of Florida and all that good stuff. Oh, great job, young man. And I was all good. And then when I was about to graduate, this kind of fear started to settle in where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't actually know what's next after that. I was very much just petrified. I remember I went and talked to a professor. I was like, dude, like in a panic. And he's like, bro, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
this is happening.
You should have really been thinking about this. So before then, there's a couple of things that happened after that. So I graduated from college. I'm kind of in this limbo, and I end up working at a nightclub. A buddy of mine wanted to move in with another roommate, and he's like, dude, you need a job. And I'm like, I guess. And he's like, hey, there's this place in downtown Orlando called Antigua. You get a job there. I'm like, okay. So literally graduated from college with a 4.0. Now I'm working at a nightclub doing bar back and cleaning up puke and throwing out trash. And so I knew that wasn't where I was supposed to stay, but at the time I just was like, have to sit here and figure out my direction. Now, the cool thing that happened during that time was, if you ever worked in a club or hospitality, you know that usually there's about 3 nights a week that you're really working, you know, where you make most of your money. In the club world, that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday type of thing. So I had a lot of free time during the week, and I started doing something called reading books. Now, they weren't just any books. I was lucky to have a friend to get me started on personal development books. The first one I read was called Who Moved My Cheese. It really set me off with this passion for reading again, which I had lost. The second thing that I did during that time with all that extra time was I joined a multi-level business. So there was an offshoot of Amway called Quick Start, and I joined that. And I really started to kind of understand that there's a whole nother world out there. And multi-levels, as you know, are very much growth oriented, which means they're personal development oriented. And they were feeding me more and more books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. Now I'm diving into the new mindset. So basically, as I'm kind of changing the mindset, I realized I'm like, I can't stay at this club. I got to get out of here. And I kind of drew a line in the sand. We talked about it today. It's like, not one more day, not one more hour. After this date, I'm out of this club, whether I have something figured out or not. So I made that decision. As you know, once you make a true decision, you know, you get a supernatural opening. And literally,
that's right.
I was at the gym and I was talking to this guy that I worked out with, and he's like, hey man, you ever thought about the mortgage business? And I was kind of like, you mean like a loan on a home? And he goes, yeah, it's a loan on a home. That's what it is.
It's kind of what a
I don't
mortgage
know.
is,
Like,
but
I'm
yeah.
literally like not in the business world. And thank God, I said yes to that. And that's how I got into real estate. And that was back in 2002. I think it was that I got in. So that's kind of how I started. And I got into real estate by accident. So I don't know how much further in the story you want to hear,
Yeah.
but
So you went through bankruptcy early in your career, right? As the story goes, like what happened and what did that season
oh my
teach
gosh. It wasn't like it was so early in my career. It was actually after I had done some good stuff. I told you I started in the mortgage business in 2002. I'm the type of person that I feel I can learn anything. So it takes me about 6 months to get good and about a year to be a problem. And so I became one of the top producers where I was at. I was making six figures at a young age. I bought my first house. I was doing all the things. And then I decided to open up my own mortgage company with another guy. We did that for 4 years. And then at that point, there's this implosion of the financial world, the market crash. And to be quite honest with you, I was too young to say to myself, let me just stick with this even through the tough time, because I was one foot in, one foot out, because I really wanted to be in the entertainment business. So I said, well, God's telling me to go pursue that. I mean, the whole financial world imploding. So I did that. I had it in my mind that I had some money in the bank. I had about $200,000 of credit card that could be spent. Yeah,
you were a problem. You were a problem. $200,000 on a credit card, ready to go.
I was ready to rock.
I see nothing but space and opportunity.
So, I went ahead and here's the mistake that I made. And this is for everybody out there, especially if you're in your 20s and you're younger, is stop thinking in 2-year terms and start thinking in 10-year terms. And I just didn't have a lot of mentorship, and nobody ever told me to do that. Nobody was ever guiding me in that way. So I really thought, Mike, that by 2 years, bro, I'd be raking in money in the entertainment game somehow, some way. Like, okay, I'm going to take on all this debt, but we'll figure it out. No problem. Didn't figure it out. The entertainment industry was super hard to monetize. I could look back and Monday morning quarterback it, but at the end of the day, I wasn't able to get that up. And so now I'm in a bad position because I've got all this debt and I'm not making any money. And so luckily I had a business partner at the time. We were doing some real estate stuff, and he said, hey man, you really got to think about bankruptcy. He goes, I had to do it when I was 19 years old. And this is important. He said, there's no shame in it, Bobby. It's a business decision. You're in a bad position. And the last thing you want to do is get down to your final dollar and be asking your dad for money. So start planning it now and do it. And so it taught me that one market go in cycles. This idea that life is like this and it just keeps going up. It's just not real. Life is always like this, right? What I realized also was that the people who know that it goes like this and can anticipate when the changes are going to happen are the ones who win big. Because I knew a lot of people that lost money, including me. There were some big time developers in downtown Orlando that lost millions. Like, they went bankrupt, but I'm talking on a massive, massive scale because everybody didn't anticipate what was going to happen. But here's the thing. Some people won bigger than they ever would have won because they understood that that market wasn't going to hold up, and they just had that money waiting on the sideline to pounce when the market went down low. And so that was one of my first investment lessons, was like, dang, I was like, okay, yeah, some people lost real big, but some people won real big. I want to be the guy that wins real big the next time.
Money is made in every single cycle, whether the market is going up or the market is going down. People are making money. Your job is just to figure out how to capitalize on both sides of the coin.
Now that we're in a situation, the market's a little funky. I'm starting to see those type of things happening, and now I'm better prepared. In some cases, excited. It really sucks, but like, a lot of people are going to go through a lot of pain. You already know my feelings on politics, but what was promised, this thing that it was going to be a magic switch to lower prices and lower gas and no wars. Well, it's the opposite. So there's more volatility coming, more pain, but like, if you know that, then you can anticipate it and you can plan for it. And that's what I learned from the first cycle.
So was there one moment where you decided, like, I'm never building a business like that again, where it's all income, but there's no residual income that's coming in?
You need great income to create residual income. There's an element of this that kind of goes in phases. The cool thing about real estate is you can make chunks of money at a time, which I call capital. Income kind of comes in smaller chunks over time, but because the chunks in real estate can be big, you can start stacking chips. So if you were to build it the right way, what I would say is make a lot, live on a little, invest the rest. Especially if you're in real estate, like go crush it. Make 100, 200, 300, $500,000, but live on a little. And even if you're not investing it like right away, because sometimes it takes you a little while to kind of understand what you want to invest in, how you want to invest and all that stuff, but always be stacking chips. And this is the mistake that I made. What I should have done is probably not started a business. That's number one. I should have just stayed as a loan officer and just said, I'm going to dial in on this. I'm going to close more deals than anybody else. I'm going to put a ton of money in my bank. If I had the wisdom to understand the market cycle, I would have had that money ready when the market went to crap, and I would have bought on the clearance rack, and I would have built massive wealth on the other side of that. So like, that's how I would build it again.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of people, they're not automatically putting money to the side. If you're in a traditional job, that's the problem with jobs sometimes. They give you just enough to make it to the end, to the end in the next 2 weeks.
Right.
If you're at a job right now and you're capped on what you can make, like you need to figure out how to make more, right? And whether that's a bigger position or getting into something like real estate or a business or something.
Side hustle, something. Yeah.
Something, because it's just too tough to get ahead that way,
So that kind of leads me to my next question, because you usually say that most agents just focus on income as opposed to building wealth. What would you say is the biggest difference? Because that's what we're on right now.
I think it's just a mindset issue. I don't think we often get taught. This is one of my passions. I want to teach children this. Like, nobody sat down and told me these things at an early age. And if they had, like, I'm talking young, like how to manage finances, how to invest, how to create and become an entrepreneur. Like, the difference is that you are still stuck in an employee mindset usually. And especially when people come into real estate, they are stuck in this kind of employee mindset where, you have this, like, their structure, they're going to pay you X amount. It's going to come every 2 weeks, all that kind of stuff, where when you get into real estate, you're not actually getting another job. You're coming into entrepreneurship. And if you're smart, into investing. And that's the way I would attack the business. Matter of fact, like, you're one of my examples. Like, I tell people right now, the only people I want to attract to my organization are investor agents, because an investor agent has a type of growth mindset that you want, whether it's investing in their personal development, whether it's investing in others, whether it's investing in themselves. Like, they just have a growth mindset. And when I started to look at all the leaders, including yourself in our office, everybody came from an investment mindset or background. I mean, you were doing investing prior to doing.
Before I started selling real estate.
Brandy Trove just did 4.2 million in production this past month. She came in and she's like, oh, I don't even want to sell real estate. I just want to invest. But she realized the plan that I'm talking to you about. She said, wait a minute though. I can stack so much capital in the selling real estate, and then I can reinvest that money into investments. And she understood that very quickly. And that's why she became an icon agent in her first year.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. I mean, like you said, first of all, being in a position where you have the potential to make that kind of income is the first thing. You have to make the capital in order to have investable capital. That's the first thing. And many high producing agents, I would agree, that's probably one of their biggest financial mistakes is they make the money goes out fast, and then now they're in a position where they have to make that money over and over again until you get on this real estate roller coaster. But let me ask you this. An agent earns their biggest commission ever this month. What's the first thing that they should do before spending $1?
Tithe? No.
I would agree with that.
Me and Mike go to the same church, so if you guys are listening, that's why I said that. But it
is
the
true.
Right answer.
It's God who gives us the ability to make wealth, right? So, there's that.
Exactly right. I think the most important thing you need to do is understand what your monthly budget is and get that down to as lean as you can get it. And then everything else, like I said, stack chips. I'm just a big believer. I used to say stack chips and wait for the shift, because the thing is that it's funny, because with an increase in pain comes an increase in opportunity. And it's just the way it is. That's just the way markets are. And so the thing is that when pain increases and opportunity is increasing, meaning like somebody really has to sell their house right now and they got to sell it at below market. Somebody who's in trouble, right? You could be an agent on that deal and you're over here trying to find another investor to buy it. Well, you could buy it. if you don't have the capital because you haven't been saving your money, you won't be ready.
Yeah.
And my thing is stay ready. I'll give you a perfect example. So the biggest pop I made was on a commercial property. The crazy part about that story that I only realized the other day when I was doing the grid event was that, so we bought this commercial property, ended up selling it in 13 months, almost doubled what we paid for it. But at the time that opportunity came, I had to have the money. We had to put 500 down. Gil was going to put 250. I was going to put 250. Now, months before this, I had talked to my boy Felipe at Northwestern, and he said, Bobby, do you know that you can get a line of credit on your stock account? I'm like, really? You can borrow against that? Because I'm a big believer that if you own real estate, you should get a HELOC, right? Just leverage. To have it. Not so you could use it. But listen, you find a good flip, it's not a bad thing to have capital ready, right?
As long as it's a good flip, right?
Right. As long as it's a good flip. And I personally, when I borrow money now after bankruptcy is another thing I learned is like, I'm not going to borrow money for long-term use, but I'll borrow money for a flip because that's short-term use. And usually lines of credit are a better interest rate than your typical hard money. So it's a smart thing to do. But I didn't know that you could get it on the stock account. So before I had an investment or anything, I went and got the line. I went and got it done because my thought process has always been a deal's never going to wait for you to find the money. Like if it's a hot deal, somebody's going to snag it if you're not ready to snag it. And the only reason you're ready is to have the capital. So I just got the line and it was just sitting there. And if I hadn't done that months before, when that opportunity came up, I wouldn't have had the money to do it.
Wow.
And I got to thank Felipe multiple times for that because when he told me that, but immediately I made that decision. I was like, oh, whenever I have an opportunity to get lines of credit, now he says you can get it on your life insurance. I'm like, great. I got a line of credit on my life insurance and I got a line of credit on the stock account and I got a HELOC on this condo. So
doesn't mean that it's all being used, folks. This just means that it's there and it's ready so he can aim, fire when it's time.
And these are lines of credit are like credit cards. You only pay on what you use and they're way better interest rate than credit cards. So to me, I'm just like, I just want to have the capital ready. All you agents out there that are making great money, make a lot, live on a little, save the rest, and then invest the rest when you come across a deal.
So what does financial freedom look like to you?
I mentioned it before. Everybody has the same goal, living life on your own terms. I think there's levels to this, but I think the first level is like, I don't actually have to work to live, right? I went to a Tony Robbins Wealth Mastery event years ago, and it was a really great exercise. They had you first like kind of figure out like, what do you need to live? Like your current expenses and everything like that. So once your money is making you enough money to cover that, you're essentially at the first level of financial freedom. You can't go crazy. It's not mansions and Benzes, but you're covering your payment. And now what you've done is if you've bought the most important asset that you can own, and it's your time.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had all your time, that you didn't have to go use your time to make money. Then what could you do? Right? So now you have that freedom where you're like, hey man, I can actually take the time to work on a project that is meaningful to me, that is impactful to me, and has a high multiple if it goes through because I have the time to do it. I have the energy to do it. I have the focus.
Without
so
distraction.
To me, that's the without distraction, right? And so to me, that's level one. And then after that, it's like, okay, cool. Well, what do I want like my quality of life to be? What do I want to be able to do on top of that, right? Do I want to be able to buy my mom a house? Do I want to be able to fly private? Do I want to be able to do those things? And then at that point, you should figure out the number. I'll tell you what my number was at the time. This was probably 7-8 years ago, but the dream number for me, for a single guy with no family, no kids, I said it was about $330,000 a year. Like if I can make $330,000 a year, I can rent the suite at the Magic game. I can do this. I could do all this. I could do all this cool stuff. So that's what I need back then. And then what happens is he had us reverse engineer to see how much you would have to have. And he used the example of like a typical diversified stock account over a long period. 7% is pretty average. A lot of times it's 10%, but let's just say it's 7%. So we took that number, divided it by 7%, and it told me what I had to hit in order to get to that level of freedom, which I think is an exercise everybody should do. So figure out what you want to make a year while you sleep, divided by 7%, and it'll give you at least a ballpark number of what you need to have in a managed account that you don't do anything with and you make money while you sleep. And for me, it ended up being somewhere around $5.4 million. Okay. Which to some people might sound like a lot, but to me, I was like, that actually sounds doable. You know what I'm saying? There's people in our office making $500,000 a year or more.
Yeah. There's people that we know personally that make almost $1 million a month.
You know, right. And obviously you've got people at EXP with revenue shares and the 100,000 a month and up to $1 million a month, you know, so you can do it. But let's just say that the typical agent that's just out there producing. And remember, it's not just like you're taking the money and you're saving it. Remember, you're taking the money and you're putting it into an interest bearing account that's compounding.
Right.
So if you're making $500,000 and you can live off of 100, 150, you should be putting $200,000-300,000 a year into that account, and it keeps earning interest and compounding. And I'm not saying that that's the only wealth strategy. Right. I'm just using that as a simple example because most people can do that. Like, you don't have to learn how to flip to get with a good financial advisor and put your money to work in a diversified stock account.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right. So I'm going to give you two options. Tell me which one creates more long-term wealth and why. All right. Build a bigger sales business or buy more assets?
Definitely buy more assets. Like I said, leverage the sales business to buy more assets, but it'll be the assets that free you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'll be the assets that free you, right? So that's the whole point. That stock account is an asset. That investment property is an asset. That commercial property is an asset. You need to continue to think you got to make money so you can spend money on things that make you money.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So the sales business will make you money, but if it still depends on your own effort, and this is another thing you got to consider, is that at some point you might not be able to put in the hours and the effort to do this. You're not even calculating the fact that you might not be personally able to do it, or you're not even calculating life crises. Everything seems great until one of your family members falls ill and now you can't work and you're trying to be by their bedside, or they need money for their operation or whatever the medication, and you need to be the one to step up. And so most people aren't thinking about some of the worst case scenarios. And that's something that you got to have in your mind. I have it. I'm like, listen, man, like, I know life changes. And so you can't gamble with this. The sooner you get into this game, the better. Because the last thing you want to do is wait until you're way down the road and be like, oh man, I wish I would have done this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's too important.
All right. Cash flow or appreciation?
I guess it depends on how much cash flow. Here's what I'll say. Everybody invests differently. I don't think it's either or. Okay. For instance, everybody has a different goal. So let's say my goal was 20 grand a month passively. I could do that with buying a lot of residential properties or buying a couple of commercial properties. I could hold those properties and they would make me mailbox money of $20,000 a month. And you've reached your goal and you're in a good spot.
Yeah.
And that's what you wanted. And if you wanted more cash flow, you could build assets that give you more cash flow. Okay, cool. But if you say, hey, listen, man, like, I want more than that, then the other strategy could be that you're putting your money into equity plays, then getting your equity out and reinvesting the equity. So you're starting to flip money. So let me give you an example of that. Like, one of my mentors, he thinks cash flow from residential is kind of negligible. He calls it just the glue that keeps the deal together until he sells the property. But he bought at the bottom of the market when the market crashed. So let's give a simple example. You anticipated the market crashing, market crashes, you buy 10 homes. Okay. At clearance prices. And then you rent them, but just to make sure your payments are covered or whatever, you're not really trying to get rich off the cash flow.
You don't have to make money to pay for them. They're paying for themselves, essentially.
They're paying for themselves, and it's just the glue holding the deal together until the market rises again. So now those 10 houses each gain $100,000 of equity. So now you've got 10 houses with $100,000 in equity. When the market is at or near the top, because market go in cycles, and you realize that timing is important, you say, I'm going to get out of the game right now. Why? Because when you cash out, now you have $1 million in cash of capital. Now with $1 million, what could you buy? Now you can start playing the big boy game. Now you can say, hey, okay, I had 10 residential properties with $1 million. I could actually buy $3-4 million
apartment
commercial property that in just one building will make me probably 20 times the amount of cash flow it would have made on those 10 homes that I bought. So everybody's going to do this differently. In my particular case right now, like, unless the cash flow is really exciting on whatever the investment is, I'm in kind of like the equity building. I just want more money to make bets. But here's a big distinction, is that a lot of people don't do that. It's a skill set to be able to deploy capital.
Yeah.
Cause like, you could have sold those houses and had your $1 million, but not know where the heck you're going to put it next.
That's right.
Right. And there's plenty of places you could, but I'm just saying, like, you have to have that strategy.
Yeah. When we talk about exit strategies, it's not simply exiting. It's like you're exiting, but you need to know what you're going to do with the capital once you exit.
Right. And then, you get a lot of investors like doing 1031 exchanges, like on a commercial property, right? And they're just flipping the money. They bought a $2 million building, sold it for $5 million, took the equity from that, bought a $10 million building, took the equity from that, bought a $30 million building. And now you're talking about millions versus $500 a month from 10 properties.
Yeah.
And so it's just about what you want. I think that there's people that will be absolutely happy with cash flow of 20 grand a month. They can live out the rest of their days. They don't have a lot of expenses. They don't have some massive goals. They don't want the yacht. They don't want all that kind of stuff. They're like, listen, man, as long as I can pay my house or my rent and my kids are good, I'm good. And there's people like that. Not everybody's on that. Like,
I'd say that's most people. Most people want to feel that, have that feeling of freedom without the stress, knowing that it's coming in each month and not having to work for it every single month. I would say that the majority of people out there would want that, but most people don't know that it exists or don't know how to get to it.
Yeah. But you got to be willing to take some risks. That's probably the number one thing that keeps most people from getting in the game is risk aversion.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different level of risk tolerance.
Yeah. It's so funny that you say that. Just before we got on, my mom called me. She actually called me while I was on a call earlier. I couldn't take her call. I called her back and I said, hey, what's going on? She said, well, I was calling because I was a little concerned. I know you said that you had put some money into that, what's that thing called? Bitcoin? And, it's down and it's real bad. I mean, a lot of people are losing their houses and their cars and all kinds of stuff. And she said, so I just wanted to make sure you were okay. And I said, yeah, I actually got in a lot lower than where it even is right now that it's fallen. So I'm actually up. Right? Like I was willing to take that risk. I was willing to get into the investment, paying attention to what was happening and not being impulsive and buying it when it was $100,000 a coin, but more like when it was like $30,000 a coin and $40,000 a coin. Right. Yeah. And now it's at 62. Yeah. So I'm still up. Right. We're still good.
You're still up. The other side is that, you tell mom, and matter of fact, I'm buying more now because you're buying the dip. And that's the part, like when people see that something volatile like Bitcoin, you got to be able to handle the swings.
Yeah.
Because if you're really kind of emotional and frantic, that's a long play.
Yeah.
Like my financial advisor loves me because I don't ever call him when the market, Trump did this and the market went. I was like, bro, I ain't worried because I'm in this for the long game. Like, matter of fact, I know he's buying more when the market drops. Like, when it dips. And I understand that. I didn't at first. When I was younger, I was like, oh my God, half my money just went away. I'm like, with certain things, you're playing the long game. Now, with short-term things, you got to be thinking about that, such as flips and things like that. You got to really do your math well, especially in challenging markets like this. You really got to be smart when you're in a soft market like this. You got to be a little bit more conservative and not think that everything's going to fly off the shelf like it did during COVID.
Yeah. What's one investment every entrepreneur should be making before they buy another rental property or even buying a business?
It's what I teach to agents, man. Your first best investment is you. And in particular, educating yourself. And listen, everybody out here, I don't consider myself like an expert per se, but I am a student. And the things that I'm telling you are not things that I'm making up. I've been taught by guys that are worth 100 million, and I paid to be in their groups, and I read books, and I study this because I truly believe that wealth is an area of study. You don't actually have the option not to study it. Like you can, but man, if you end up with more life than money, that ain't no way to live. And the reality is, you might be 20 right now. Like, I don't got to think about that. No, but this is the best time to think about it.
That's right.
Because you have time on your side. So what I would say is like, man, educate yourself. Like a guy I was talking that came to Grid, he's like, he was doing some flips up north and I lost some money because of this and that. And I'm just like, bro, if this guy would have talked to me, I could have helped him with that. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm thinking about wholesale, but there's 20 other, 30 other, whatever, how many other investments you could be looking at. It's not just one thing.
Right.
People get caught up in the normal ones and they don't continue to go down the rabbit hole and say, actually, for instance, private lending is something that I knew it existed, but I never thought about it as a great investment vehicle. And private lending is one of those things that a lot of people don't talk about. And this is why the capital is important. If you can build up enough chunk of capital, then you could literally lend money to flippers and be making like 16% a year on your money. Yeah. And you could do it from anywhere. So it takes a little bit of effort, but not as much as you'd think.
It's not. I mean, I got into that side of the game when I was flipping homes. I was doing hard money lending to investors who were looking to flip properties. I was careful in the way that I securitized the money and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, like, man, it turned out to be really good. But I learned about that from a mentor that I was working with who had plenty of experience in how to do that. And so I think a lot of it comes down to some of what you're saying is getting around the right people, being willing to always be in learning mode, being willing to sit at the feet of mentors, people who are ahead of you, not simply just sitting there wondering what people can do for you, but like truly having an exchange of value and humbling ourselves. That's one of the things I love about the culture that we've created at our office, quite honestly, within the Global Alliance. How would you describe our office? If you had to describe it to an agent who's like, I am looking for this community. This is the kind of thought patterns that I need. I want to take more risks. I know that there's more for me, but I feel like I might be the biggest thinker in my office or in the space that I'm in. How would you describe what we have?
I think if you did a one-liner, we're a personal development company that happens to do real estate. We use real estate as a tool to grow people. And when you grow people, you can grow a business. We just think differently than most places. Most places are like, come in here, we want to make a piece of your deal and whatever the case may be. Well, when you come into our community, we're like, no, we want to make you the best human, personally, spiritually, emotionally, and make you a crazy savvy business owner. On top of that, we want to make you an investor, a savvy investor, because we want to get you free. I don't expect you to be doing the same thing you're doing today, 10 years from now. I expect you to be making mailbox money. So that's almost like some people think scarcity and they say, well, aren't you telling them not to produce so you make less over time? No, because they're going to do the third thing that we believe in, which is servant leadership. They're going to pay it forward. Yeah. Because of the things that we believe, we attract people who believe the same things, who also attract people who believe the same things. And then the train continues to roll. I would say that we are the Global Alliance. This doesn't get talked about, but I think our value is that I think we're the #1 real estate mastermind in the world. If you plug in. And if you happen to be local here in the Orlando area, you actually get a physical space to plug in and get community. You get to see Mike Collier in person. You get to hear Mike Collier on the phone. You get to hear Mike Collier speak. And then that's a whole different story. Yeah. So now with this new culture center that we have and this beautiful space, and we ain't even moved in yet 100%. And I'm already feeling the vibe because there's an energy in there. And when you're around people that all they want to do is see you win, even you don't have to be in their organization. You don't have to be on their team. Like people in our office want to see other people win. And the cool thing is you got a lot of examples of winners too. Yeah. So there's people who are not only building great lives, but great businesses. Like I said, there's people in their 20s that are making, $500,000 more a year in production. Plus they've got stock with EXP and they've got revenue share. And it's just like, dude, these guys inspire me. Like I'm not even close to the biggest producer or anything in my own office. Like we have attracted this group of people that show me what's out there and what's next.
Yeah. Just an impressive group of people. If you've been watching the episodes, you've been listening to the Leverage Lounge for a little while, you've heard me. I've had people from our office on here. I've had Gil Ramos. I've had Corinne DeFilippis. I've had Alexis Diaz. I mean, these are the quality of the people that we're surrounded by on a daily basis that in some areas of our lives and our business, we might be a few chapters ahead of in this area, but there are a few chapters ahead of us in other areas where we go, oh, I can learn from you. And we're in this amazing pot of gumbo, right? Where we get a chance to just learn from each other and love each other and pay it forward towards each other. And then, like you said, attract like-minded people into this same pot of gumbo that we're a part of. So I love that, man.
I love the pot of gumbo. I like that.
Yeah, it's a good old pot of gumbo. Now, if you were starting over today with no network, no reputation, what would your first 90 days look like?
I think with everything that I know now, I would be 100% focused on getting myself in the right rooms with the right people. Last night, I interviewed Veronica Figueroa for the Grid Orlando event. I always love hearing her story because I always hear something new. But her and her husband were about to go broke. She spent her last $5,000 to go to this top conference in Texas where these asset managers were because they were doing a bunch of REOs. And she needed them to believe in her to give her deals and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And I thought initially the story is that she took that $5,000 and actually bought some kind of leads from them or a leads program. And that's how she made it. And that's not what she did. She spent $5,000 on creating an experience and inviting all the top people to it. She rented out the Capitol Grill. And with her last $5,000, she rented out the Capitol Grill. She's like, I hadn't even been to Capitol Grill. I'd never afforded Capitol Grill. But with the last $5,000, and he goes, and I went to the guy that I knew that knew all the other asset managers and said, hey, I need you to invite all of them into this event that I'm doing. And she created an experience. She created the room. She didn't just get in the room. She invested in creating the room. And right then she left with somebody had gave her 35 properties right off the rip. And then the rest is history.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
She wasn't waiting for a seat at the table. She built the table.
She built the table, man. And guess what? I'm going to tell you right now, this is the next evolution of what I'm going to do. I need to start building my own tables. This Breakfast of Champions that you do, Mike. Is brilliant. You're building your own table. Just talk to an agent who's probably going to be coming on board today that came from that. And what you're doing is you're allowing people into your world and you're building a way more solid relationship with folks, and it's more human and it works. So if it was my first 90 days, I'd get in the right rooms and create the right rooms in order to build the network, because it only takes one person to change your entire trajectory.
Boom.
Boom.
So we talked about being in the right rooms. You lead Grid Orlando, and I don't know that a lot of people actually know what that is. So can you talk about what is Grid Orlando?
Right. So as you and I know, if you want to grow, you got to plug in. So Grid is a supercharge in investing, basically an investment community. It's actually a national community. There's about 16,000 members across the country. We happen to run the Orlando chapter. And what it is, it's really about getting people together, not only educating them, but also making sure that they build relationships with each other. It's kind of an ecosystem for you to connect with other investors, flippers, wholesalers, to connect with lenders, people who can lend you money for your flips or lend you money to purchase your commercial property or whatever the case may be. It's a chance to connect with investor agents and for investor agents to connect with investors. That was the whole premise of Grid, and even the company that I have, Investor Season, was the foundation of it was how do we educate folks on the investment game so that they can work with more investors and be the investor. So there's no pitches. We're not selling anything. It's really a chance for the investment minded to get together and start building some connections. Real estate agents can build connections with investors. Lenders can build connections with investors. And essentially our goal is to make you a better investor, right? So each one of the Grid events, the one we do in Orlando, Grid Orlando, is the first Tuesday of every month at 5:30 p.m. at our culture center. And then we have a specific topic. So for instance, last night, topic with Veronica as the guest was creative financing. So I taught a little bit about seller financing and how to structure those type of deals. I talked about a new way to raise capital called fractional. And then Veronica's interview, she kind of went into some of the real estate deals that she's done creatively as well. So that's what it is. It's open to anybody. It doesn't cost anything. And it's just been great so far, man. Is my jam. So this one of my favorite things to do is to get people together, talk about investing and the kind of connections people are making there. Half the time we got to kick people out at the end because they're still networking, they're still going, and that's what I want to see. And by the way, if you come to an event, you also get to introduce yourself, what you do and what you're looking for. So
anybody can come to these.
Anybody can come to these. Everybody will know who you are because we're going to make sure that they do. And then networking becomes a lot easier when you know who's in the room.
So it sounds like you already built your table, bro.
That is absolutely one of my tables. Yes. But you make me a little bit jealous with the event that you're doing, like the Champions Breakfast. I love those events, but a lot of times I'm up front and I'm not with the people, and
Yeah.
something like your Breakfast of Champions allows you to have a way more intimate conversations and a different space. So I've got to create my own Breakfast of Champions. I want to make it investor related, maybe call it investor season, network or whatever.
I like it. Yeah, and for those of you who are listening and you're like, what is this Breakfast of Champions thing we keep on talking about? Breakfast of Champions is a community that I built. I call myself a community builder. If I'm not a part of the community that I want to be a part of, then I'll build the community that I want to be a part of. And this is a faith-based, business-related mastermind that I do with agents across Central Florida and really throughout the state of Florida. Every month, we get together at the Ritz-Carlton. We cover their valet parking. So there's valet parking, then we cover their breakfast, and it's very intentional. It personally invite 10 to 12 agents, and we're just talking about what's working in their business, what's not working in their business. The whole goal is that you talk about what's not working in your business, somebody at the table could very well have the answer to the problem that you have. The truth of the matter is, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in this episode, is that most business owners don't have a community that they're a part of. They don't have a healthy community that they're a part of, that they feel that they can share any of their weaknesses, any things that they really don't know. And so this is a judgment-free zone where people could come in and really build with each other, pray for each other. That stuff is really important to me. And so I didn't know of any other community that existed, so I created it. And so that's what Bobby is alluding to. And again, I extend that invitation to any of you who might be watching or listening to this. If you're listening to this and you go, man, that would be dope, just come to the Ritz-Carlton and have breakfast paid. Be a part of it, right? Come on in. Yeah. And this is for producing agents, I will say. If you're a brand new agent, you just got your license, you haven't done a deal yet, your question is at the table, like, how do I fill out a contract? Like, you're not our avatar, I would say. But if you've done a few deals and you have some value to add to the table, then we absolutely invite you to be a part of it. All right. Now, Bobby, I want to take you through a lightning round.
Okay.
1 or 2 words. No overthinking. All right.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Rich or wealthy?
Wealthy.
Cash flow or equity?
Equity.
Stocks or real estate?
Real estate.
Okay. Commercial or residential?
Commercial.
Favorite business book?
Think and Grow Rich.
Okay. Best investment you've ever made?
Commercial property, the Quantum Leap Winery here in Central
The
Florida.
one we talked about. Yeah. Okay.
Was it?
Worst investment you've ever made?
Ooh. Oh, this is a good one. Only 2 words?
You can expound if you need to.
I'll just say that.
Ex-girlfriend. No, just
yeah, right. A guy that I didn't know pitching something I didn't understand, and I was in a desperate situation, which is a triple whammy, and I lost my money.
Okay. One app you use every day?
Chat and Claude.
Okay. One habit that's had the biggest impact on your success?
Focusing on building strong relationships.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Lastly, success means blank.
Impact.
Come on.
I believe that impact is the ROI that God wants. And I think God's an investor. And I think that we're vessels for that. We get assets called time, talent, and treasure. And at the end of the day, God doesn't need your money. He wants to impact. He wants you to elevate others spiritually, business-wise, whatever you can do. And so I think that's always the ultimate goal, is the impact.
You know, you and I actually talk about God being our business partner. I actually have a t-shirt that says, prayer is part of my business plan.
Yeah.
Right. So tell us about, how has faith impacted your entrepreneurship and your new view on how money and income and wealth and business building and people, like, how does all of that play together in the confines of, like, in faith?
What I figured out as I dug deeper into the Bible was that it's also an investment book. It has specific things. And matter of fact, money is talked about most in the Bible. I feel like the pastor said it was like mentioned like 2,500 times. It's something that can be a blessing or a curse. And so what I realize is that the real curse is making money an idol and being so focused on money and things and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean that money's not important, right? So
Yeah.
you have to find that balance in there. And in the faith portion of it, it's the group we belong to, which is kingdom builders. I feel like if your intention is to put yourself in the position to have the most impact, then you're kingdom building. When you're broke, it's the most selfish place you can be because all you think about is yourself. So this flawed money idea that the struggle is the way and money is all bad. I'm like, yeah, but like, how many people can you help? Then you have the flip side where you have people that don't help anybody at all and are just helping themselves. They're trying to fill spiritual holes with money. And then they realize that at the end of the day, it never gets them what they want. And then they're really stuck. So it's helped me a lot. And even the thing we talked about before, tithing and things like that, like the reason I say God is my business partner is like, well, first of all, we're stewards of this money. It's not ours. And the pastor did the other day, the 10 apples. He's like, dude, God is asking, if you got 10 apples, he's asking for 1 apple. And he's saying, give that to the church, of course, one that you believe in, but also extra offerings, helping other people out and contribute those things. And it's the one thing that God says test him on in the Bible. Right. This is important because a lot of people that don't read the Bible have just heard stories like God says, don't test me, but you can test me on this. If essentially you don't make this thing an idol and you invest in the kingdom, I will repay you 100-fold. Don't worry about this. Like this will come back to you. And that's not the only reason you should do it.
Yeah. You don't give to get, but you do need to understand biblical principles around money. Yeah.
There's a promise behind it. So it's been fascinating how I think people sometimes think that business and faith are these two separate things. But like, that's why I love like your Breakfast with Champions is like, actually, I want them to be both. And really, some of the best people that I work with, like Mike, and isn't it great to be with people who have the same type of beliefs? And these aren't like bad beliefs. I mean, some people have bad beliefs, but like to believe that you should love on folks and make an impact and grow the kingdom and follow Jesus' path. Like, I want to work with people like that.
Amen. All right. I want you to imagine that there's an entrepreneur who's listening to this or who's watching this, who's making great money, but they secretly feel trapped by their business that they've built. What's one piece of advice that you'd want them to remember a year from now?
You need to get some help. And so everybody that I know that's been able to break away has been able to put pieces in place where you got to figure out the things that are not your highest and best use. What you got to think about is what is my highest and best use? And if I were able to focus just on that, could I actually make 10 times what I'm making now and enjoy it more and be doing less of the things that I do not like to do? So then you kind of write the list out. Like, I'm realizing there's a lot of things that I do that I just do out of necessity that I don't necessarily enjoy or have a passion for, which means you're doing them mediocre anyway. So now I'm looking to realign my unique abilities in this place because I know that if I can just focus on what I do really, really, really well, then I'll actually make more money. Like right now, you think you can't let go of this control, but if you switch your mindset that actually, if I were to let this go, what could happen on this side, right? So a lot of people like you, Mike, and other folks use virtual assistants. In real estate, a transaction coordinator could be your first move. Like, why are you doing this paperwork stuff and figuring out deadlines and writing stuff up? Like, one of your first systems is, dude, get a transaction coordinator. It's worth the money. You're buying something with that money. You're buying your peace of mind. You're buying your time, and then as I see some of these other big real estate people grow, they start growing teams. I don't know how many VAs you got now, but like there's people in the office that got like 5, 6 VAs, I'm
at 3.
You have 3, right? So life is just better on the business owner side than on the self-employed side.
Yeah, I agree. And leverage is the key. The leverage is the key to scaling whatever it is that you're wanting to build. And so if people want to connect with you, where can they connect with you and learn more about what you're building and follow your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Bobby Franchise, as you see on the screen, that's my Instagram handle. Anybody can message me and directly right there, or you can go to investorseason.com. It's a way to contact me there as well. And then if you're interested in Grid, you can go to investorseason.com/grid and register for the next event.
Okay. Is that Investor Season just spelled out as Investor Season?
Yep. Full words, investorseason.com/.
Because I know your logo has like a SZ in. I think it's like super cool. Bobby Franchise.
That's the hip way to do it. But
little saison. I didn't know if it was season or saison.
Saison.
Hey, man, I appreciate you jumping on here, having this conversation with us here in the Leverage Lounge. You've provided a ton of value, and I think people will definitely be reaching out to you. Maybe come visit our culture center, maybe stop in at Grid Orlando, see what you got going on, meet some other investors, and see how they can grow their business in the right way as well. So I appreciate you jumping on. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Leverage Lounge, and we'll see you next time.